All right, guys. So here is the paper, right? The 2025 POA paper. I want to give my reaction on this paper, tell you what I think about it. And I would love to hear your thoughts about this paper in the comment section. Tell me what you think about my views. Tell me how you did, right? And um, just generally leave a comment, right? And let's see, what you think. So as you know, it is 5 questions that you are given and you're asked to do all 5. The questions are 20 marks each in total, right? Which adds up to 100 marks. The multiple choice is 60 marks and then the SBA is 40. So overall, everything is marked out of 200. So the paper started out, right? I'm going to tell you what I think about each question. And then at the end of it, I'm going to tell you my general thoughts. So the question started out with a statement of account for a customer where they ask you to fill in the information, right? If you ask me, this is 2 marks. This is pretty simple, right? Um, this part here is simple. It's really books of original entry, right? That is asking, right? Then part B of question 1 goes on, which is it's a cash book question, right? So it's a cash book question that it has a bank overdraft, right? So my students would have known how to deal with a bank overdraft, right? So this is not a paper where I'll do the paper. This is not that type of video. I'm going to give you my reaction. I'll do the paper, right? But I won't even do the paper now. It would make any sense. I do the paper now, right? You already did the exam. This paper would benefit students doing the exam in January or next May, right? Eventually, I'll do the paper and upload just the same. But I'm going to tell you my reaction, right? So this is a cash book, right? And on the next page, they would have given you the cash book, and pretty simple 3-column cash book. All right. So that again for in total, this is 11 marks, right? So this little question here, along with the cash book, which is 10 marks, so that is 11 marks, plus the 2, that's 13 marks. All right. Continuing, part C of the question, you have a 2-mark question. That's a theory question. Pretty simple though. Then part D of the question is worth 5 marks, where they're asking you to show Timor's account, right? Is debtor's account, right? So they want you to show his account, and that's 5 marks. I think that is pretty simple. So overall, question 1, though it is long, it has many parts. I believe that it's a fairly simple question, right? The average accounting student should be passing this question. Everybody should at least look at books of original entry. That is not a topic that people skip over, right? That's a foundation topic. So that this right question, most persons should be passing that question. Then, then the second question. Now let me tell you something. The second question, right? It's a pretty simple question if you ask me, right? I'm going to tell you my issues, right, with this. So this is a company account question. So they give you a trial balance, right? And then they ask you to use the form below to prepare the income statement for the company, right? That's 11 marks. Then they want you to prepare the company appropriation account, right? That's for an additional 9 marks. So the entire question 2 is the income statement of the company along with the appropriation account for the company. Now, in general, company accounts is not a difficult topic. If you would have done income statement and adjustment for income statements, right? Then if you are good at that, then company account should not be a major issue for you. It's there is some difference with the company account, though, that may take you off guard if you don't know anything at all about company accounts. So if you have never done company accounts before, then this question would probably be a problem for you because some of the terms are different, right? and so forth and so on, right? So I can understand for persons who have never done company account before, if you have not even looked at the theory and look at our company account, a company income statement and appropriation account looks, then trust me, you will struggle with this question. So if you ask me, this is a pretty average question, right? The average accounting student should be able to pass this question, right? However, as I said before, if you were not exposed to this not all, then you would struggle, right? And this is where now my problem comes in, because this is 20 marks for the company, right? So this will test your knowledge in income statement, adjustments to final accounts, and the company accounts. All right. So yeah, it's going to test that, right? If you look in here, it will also test your knowledge in depreciation, right? The third point there is depreciation. But I mean, pretty much standard as it relates to adjustments to final accounts. My problem though is, why is it then that the third question is in relation to the second question and it is 20 marks? It seems to me that it is just lazy writing on the part of CXC, right? 40% of the paper is testing one topic. For me, that makes no sense, right? It makes absolutely no sense. I don't know who is in charge of these things, right? But this makes no sense. You cannot have 40% of the paper testing only one topic, right? You know what I mean? And all right, let's say it's because company account is so different from a regular income statement, right? So I have a problem with one topic worth 40 marks, because this is question three. Question three, 20 marks just to make the statement of financial position, the balance sheet, for question two. So if you don't understand question two at all, let's say you didn't do company accounts any at all, then you would have problem with question three. So question two and question three is really out for you. So two-fifths of your paper is already taken away from you because you just did not prepare in one topic, right? When I look at the amount of topics that are on the syllabus that are testable, you cannot attribute 40% of the marks, 40% of the marks to one topic. For me, that's poor assessment, right? I don't agree with that. But that's just my view, right? And as I said, tell me what you think in the comment section below. All right, number 4. Right, so number 4, it's talking about an entrepreneur who made an investment and they're asking you to calculate, right, is the percentage rate per year, right? Looking at it, this would not be difficult. If you're a math student, then this would not be difficult. They're asking you to calculate the average percentage rate. So you would just basically add up all of these, right, and divide it by 5 to get the average percentage rate. So a math student, that would not be difficult, right? But if you were not thinking math and you're thinking all accounts, and not transferring knowledge from maths, then you would have a problem. Then it asking you to calculate the dollar amount. So this is just really testing your knowledge to calculate percentages, right? So that, for me, is not a problem. And they're asking you to show your workings, which means that you'll be getting marks here and there, right? Yeah. So if you had attempted it, right, then, yeah. Then now it moves into accounting ratio, where you're talking about the return on investment, right? And explain the meaning of return on investment. So if you would have looked at accounting ratios, then you would understand what that term is talking about, right? So the last question is really still talking about the question about the investment. You should talk about whether or not it was a good investment, yes or no, right? And then they're asking, the last part of the question is asking you to complete is cash flow for the 5 years. Now, cash flow, which is really a new topic to the syllabus, it's doing maybe 3 years now in the syllabus. A lot of teachers don't have the time to teach it, or just don't teach it any at all. So for persons who don't teach it, then this part of the question is 2 marks still, but it would probably catch you out. So if you ask me, question 4, it's more of a math type of question, right? It's more of a math type of question. All right, so, and then now finally we move to question 5, right? Question 5 is a non-profit question, right? It's a non-profit organization question. Personally, I had thought that that this topic was taken off the syllabus, right? But it's a non-profit. It's a non-profit firm, and so the first part of the question is pretty simple, right? They're asking you to talk about expenditure or revenue expenditure, which for me again is simple, 5 marks for that. And then they're asking you to create the receipts and payments account. Again, it is pretty simple if you have done it, right? If you hadn't done it, then it would be a problem. I remember that I have a couple of videos on this, right? I would have looked at it in the marathon for those who would have looked at the marathon, right? And so forth and so on. But if you have not done receipt, and then again, this is a topic that is not so much taught either, right? So essentially looking at it, it is pretty simple. I can tell you, it is pretty simple, right? However, if you haven't done it, then you're going to have a problem. So that's really where the paper ends. So now, what are my thoughts in general? In general, this paper is not a difficult paper. I can tell you that it's not a difficult paper. The problem is the topics that are here are not topics that people generally prepare for. You get what I'm saying? So that in and of itself would make it difficult. So people were thinking about control systems, books of original entry, income statement. People would focus on these type of things, correction of errors, bank recon, yeah, all of those things, which are, typical topics that you would expect an exam, manufacturing account, partnership account, all of these things. But lo and behold, company account take up almost 50% of the marks of the paper. So if you did not do company account, then your life would just be in jeopardy, right? Your life would just be in jeopardy, right? And also, the fourth question number 4, that talks about the percentage, and it's more like a math question along with ratio at the end. That question, right? You would have to think critically to answer this and to transfer the knowledge. So this would be difficult for persons who are looking for something straightforward or something more straightforward than this. So if you're not good at math, right, or if you did not, excel in math, then this question would clearly be a problem for you. And especially if you did not look at accounting ratios to understand what return on investment is and what that ratio talks about, then you probably have a problem with number 4. And as I said, number 5, I personally thought that this was removed from the syllabus, right? I know that a lot of teachers would not have taught this topic. So in general, the paper would essentially be difficult for a lot of students. I can tell you it is much more difficult than the January paper, right? It is much more difficult than last year's paper, right? And the only reason for that, as I said before, is it is comprised of topics that are not necessarily taught as much. So a lot of emphasis is not placed on the topics that makes up the majority of the paper. Accounting ratios, company accounts, and accounting for non-profit organization. These are 3 questions that makes up 4 out of the 5 questions, right? So that would have been a problem. So for persons who haven't, did not do those topics, then I'm sorry, the paper would be difficult for you. For persons who would have covered all those topics, then this paper should be a manageable paper for you. But do not lose heart. We have the multiple choice to come. A lot of you have good SBA grades already, so you're going in there with 30 something already, right? And let's just say the worst case scenario, you get 30 out of the 100 on this paper. Let's just say that's the worst case scenario, right? That's not even the worst case scenario. Let's say the worst case scenario is you get 20 on this paper, and let's say you get 30 on the multiple choice, not on the multiple choice, but on your SBA. So that's what, 50 out of the 200. And let's say you can go into the multiple choice and get a 40. That's 90 out of 200. That could be enough, right, to get you a pass in the accounts exam, right? So it's not over yet. Let's just say that it's not over yet. It is just I wouldn't say halftime, but you're 3/4 of the way there. Let us focus and remain focused on the multiple choice. What I'll be doing, I'll be dropping some multiple choice videos of past multiple choice papers. You do not want to miss that. Send to your friend. Ensure that you subscribe and like and share. Let me know what you think about the paper in the comment section below. And as I said before, it's not over yet. We have the multiple choice to go. So keep heart and let's keep pushing. See you in the next one.